Hello everyone, this is Tanya from Professor Tanya Speaks, and today we're going to continue talking about the research paper, but we're going to be looking at how to integrate sources in our research paper or our research essay or our research speech or our research report. We're going to talk about how to integrate sources so that we maintain academic integrity and so that anyone who reads our paper or listens to our speech will realize that this is an academic research paper or speech. But let me do a quick review of what you should have done before getting to this stage. You should have already come up with a research topic and a research question. If you haven't, I did a video and you can watch that video to see how to do that. That was step one. Step two was when you did audience analysis. Once again, I did a video on audience analysis. Then the third thing you would have done is come up, or should have done, is come up with your purpose statement, because that will guide you so that you stay focused and so that you stay on track. After that, you would have come up with what we call the core sentence if it's a report. But if it's a research essay, then you would be coming up with your thesis statement. And if it's a speech, you would be coming up with your thesis statement or your main point. That's the big overarching point, because that is what will guide you and will help you to find the most accurate points. And for the core sentence, I did a video on that. And for the thesis, I also did a video on that. Now, once you've gotten to that point, then you would have had three categories, whether it's the core sentence or the thesis statement or the main points for the speech. You would have come up with three main points, and those 3 points are going to guide you when you do your research. Matter of fact, whatever you research will be as a result of those 3 points. So the fifth thing we did in this video was talk about how to come up with an alphanumeric outline to guide you. Now, I did mention the decimal outline, but I didn't show you an example. So I'll have an example of a decimal outline that you can use. But I usually suggest the alphanumeric because the mixture of letters and numbers tends to be neater. But that's just my preference. But you can use the alphanumeric outline or you can use the decimal outline. Now let me emphasize that a research paper or speech requires research. And I am saying that because sometimes students forget that what we're looking for is research. Even if it's a speech, if it's a research speech, we are looking for research. And because you are college students or university students, Google is not your friend. Neither is YouTube. We're looking for credible sources. And to find those sources, you must visit your library online. Yes. It's not supposed to be information that can be just Googled and found on the internet just like that. It's a research paper. That's why they are worth sometimes 30 and 35 and 40%. They are not 10% assignments. They're not usually. I know for me, they're 30 and 35% assignment because research calls for a lot of brain work. So just let me get that out there. I am looking for research and I am looking for credible sources. It is credible once it comes from the library. It's also credible when you can look at it and you can tell that it was written by a scholar or an expert. But if it's just someone giving their opinion, I don't want it. We don't want it because we want research. So let me just put that out there. Research means that you are going to be looking in the database in your library and you are coming up with experts who have academic credibility. That is a requirement of research. Now, there are usually three types of sources. It can be either a primary source, a secondary source, or a tertiary source. Now, it's a primary source if the information is gained directly from the source through maybe journals, diaries, even clothing. But it's primary when you do the research. So you may end up doing an interview or you have a questionnaire. That would be a primary source. So it's a primary source when the original material provides you with the raw data. And it's a secondary source when you're consulting books, journals, reports that have been based on the primary sources, and usually they're intended for a scholarly or a professional audience. And you're looking for material that has been put together in an article or a journal, wherever, but it's for a scholarly audience. Now, it's a tertiary source when someone puts together material based on the secondary source. So they synthesize the material and they interpret it. That's the tertiary source. You could use tertiary sources if you can't find secondary, but secondary sources are usually standard, and that's what we usually ask for. We'll take primary also, but primary would have to be mixed with secondary. So if you're doing something that calls for you interviewing someone, that's fine, but you also will need secondary sources. Now, once you find the sources, you are ready to integrate the material. And please note, the word is integrate, not throw it in and leave it there. Integrate it with your ideas, your wording. And you are going to acknowledge the sources, because if you do not, that will be plagiarism. So what we're going to talk about now is the three most popular ways that people integrate sources, and then I'm going to show you a pattern that you can follow to ensure that you integrate well. So the first thing you need to know is that there are three ways that information can be included in your research paper. You can either quote, or you can summarize, or you can paraphrase. Quote, summarize, paraphrase. And when you do that, you are integrating the material within the text, and we call it in-text citation. You must have in-text citation. And if you're doing a research paper, just about every paragraph is going to have in-text citation because it's a research paper. So please keep that in mind. Just about every paragraph will have research. Now, you should only quote if it is a requirement that we find out the author's exact words. To quote means you're using the exact words, right? But we don't need to know the exact words unless it is a very important point that cannot be put in your own words. Or if it's a technical term, or if it's a very specific, quirky, interesting idea, and if you were to put it in your own words, you would lose the essence and the meaning. That's the only time you should be quoting. Most times, you should be paraphrasing, meaning putting it in your own words. And of course, if it's a long text and you want to pick out a few of the main points, that's when you would be summarizing. So you have to use your judgment now and decide on if you're going to paraphrase or if you're going to quote. Remember, quote sparingly. That's what you need to keep in mind. Quote sparingly. You should lean towards paraphrasing, and of course you will have occasion that you will need to summarize. But quote sparingly. Whether you plan to quote, paraphrase, or summarize, it has to be done well. And these are the 7 steps that you must follow every time you are going to use or integrate a source. Step 1, make the point. Step 2, tell us the context, explain the context. Step 3, provide the author lead in. Step 4, insert the quote, the paraphrase, or the summarized information. Step 5, document the source. Step 6, interpret, explain, discuss it. And then step 7, finish off with a concluding sentence. And for those of you whose eyes have not bugged out, yes, you have to do all of that. You don't just throw it in, and it should not replace your voice. You have to first make a point, explain the context, and then you can think about integrating. It really is make a point, explain the context, then you integrate the quote, but you have to integrate it well. And after you've integrated it, then you must discuss it and wrap it up for us. And then it will be satisfactory. So let me give you an example and show you what this should look like. So this example is from the college I teach at, the Learning Center. So it's not my original work, but I will read to you an example. And my students who are listening, you can always go online, and I'm sure it's available right now. But I took it from the Learning Resource Center, and this is perfect. I'm going to show you and read to you an example of a properly integrated quote. In expensive cities like Toronto and Vancouver, the ability of parents to participate in the schooling of their children can be difficult. One important factor is simply the cost of living. Few families can afford the 1950s and 1960s model of the stay-at-home mom and the breadwinner dad if they are to pay for the expensive housing, transportation, groceries, and commodities that most families expect to have as part of their lives. Now, all of that so far is the writer, the actual student, or the person who is writing. Now we're going to talk about integrating the source. So let's continue. In a study about the need for public child care in Ontario, Lyra and Kyle, 1991, reported that, quotation marks, almost 60% of two-parent families in Canada with children younger than 5 years of age are dual earner families. End of quote, page 29. Now, this is the interpretation or the explanation. This study showed that even in the 1990s, both parents in the majority of families were in full-time work. This is a dramatic shift from 20 years earlier when the majority of Canadians had stay-at-home moms. If the trend continues, even more families will have 2 working parents. The result is that the very important factor of parent participation in the school experience of their children is becoming more difficult than before because both parents are spending a great deal of their energy at work. And now, here is the concluding sentence. It is even more crucial now than in previous decades for parents to plan how they can take time after work to be involved in the school experience that is crucial for their children's futures. That's a properly integrated paragraph with all the 7 parts. Now, this video is long enough, So I'm going to stop in a minute. And then in the next video, for those of you who want to see the breakdown, I will go through each section by section just to show you how they went from the 7 steps to creating this. But if you get it, if from reading this you can see the parts and it's easy for you, you don't have to worry about the second part. I'm only doing the second part for those who may need a little bit of extra support. And then I'll also talk about the annotated bibliography and how to write your bibliography at the end of your paper. So I hope this was useful, and I hope this made you realize how much effort needs to be put into the research paper or the research speech. It's just the same for the research speech. So thank you for joining me, and in the next video, I'll continue from here. Bye for now.